Let's face it, some states end up as punchlines more often than other states. I mean, who hasn't heard a dating a close relative joke about Arkansas? If you've never heard one of those jokes, I'd like to welcome you to America. Go to a bar and just wait. Eventually you're gonna hear an Arkansas joke and probably a few that involve a rabbi, a priest, a gypsy with a bad perm walking into a bar. Today's video is about states that get ridiculed most often. Most of this ridicule comes in the form of stereotypes. Stereotypes are a solid form of humor. Sadly, crybabies like to defend people and places by saying that it's just a stereotype. Then they like to throw it in your face like some sort of accusation, and you should feel bad for mentioning a stereotype because it's untrue. Okay, so they might be a little untrue, but stereotypes didn't just show up. They are normally earned. I grew up in a beach community in Southern California. While I was in the Army, without fail, as soon as someone from Middle America found out that I was from Southern California, they would start doing a surfer Jeff Spicoli impersonation, using the word dude a whole lot. That's a stereotype. Here's the thing. I knew dudes at the beach that talked just like that. There are or were people in Redondo Beach, California, just like Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So how'd we come up with this list? I asked a few questions on different surveys about what people thought about states and the people that live there. Those surveys turned into a series of state bashing responses. Over 1,600 people left comments that we sifted through and came up with this list. This is the result. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Tennessee. Tennessee is most often associated with the old Burt Reynolds movie called Deliverance. Most people have actually forgot what happened in this movie or anything about the movie. They just know the stereotypes and the memes and things like that. Have you ever seen a t-shirt or a meme that says, "Paddle faster, I hear banjo music"? That comes from this movie. In the movie, four friends decide to take a canoeing trip down the Chattooga River. Now, it's not Chattanooga like in Tennessee, it's Chattooga. It's not even in Tennessee, but for some reason, people seem to think this movie was filmed in and about Tennessee. In the movie, some inbred hillbillies capture poor old Ned Beatty, and he doesn't escape until he's had some backwoods lovin'. Yes, worst case scenario. And in the movie, they had a banjo scene. That's why the joke's so funny, "Paddle faster, I hear banjo music." But yeah, it wasn't filmed in Tennessee. It had nothing to do with Tennessee. People just think it's in Tennessee. Tennessee also has a long history of moonshine and stills and hillbilly escapades. They do have some backwood places to this day, but nothing like it was in the 1920s or 30s. But it was so backwards back then, it's kind of stuck. About 100 years later. One of my favorite Tennessee jokes, which I'm sure can be and has been connected to other states, but it goes like this. What's the most popular pickup line in Tennessee? Nice tooth. Number 9, Kentucky. Kentucky is a lot like Tennessee. They share a lot of the same things other than deliverance references. I mean, they've got a long, proud history of hillbillies, which they're not ashamed of. Maybe in some of the big cities they are, but they kind of taken that old lifestyle and take a little pride in it. It's strange. But to the outside world, Kentucky has a history of moonshine and feuding hillbilly clans. Back in the 1940s, there was a bunch of films about Ma and Pa Kettle. Everyone seems to think Ma and Pa Kettle these days were from Kentucky or thereabouts. What's funny about this one is they had nothing to do with Kentucky. Ma and Pa Kettle are from outside of Seattle. Kentucky also has a reputation for heavy drinking and not having much education, which is really strange. One, they do some serious drinking in Kentucky, so that's not a stereotype, that's just a fact. The uneducated thing, not as much as people might like to think. They've got some serious universities there. Eastern Kentucky University, Kentucky State, Morehead State, Murray State, Northern Kentucky University, University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, and Western Kentucky University, along with a bunch of private liberal arts colleges and private colleges in general. When it comes to their normal schools like K through 12, they're not doing that bad either. They're normally ranked somewhere between 15th and 25th. Different studies have different rankings. Number 8, Indiana. I have heard many jokes about how flat Indiana is. It's a farming state. I mean, it's farmland for as far as the eye can see. Farmland tends to be a little flat. Now, I've brought this up before, and people bring up some park they have where they have some hills. A few scattered hills here or there does not shake the reputation of being a very flat state. Most of the jokes I've ever heard about Indiana have to do with how they love their basketball and they still act like it's 1950s America. One of the people in the survey quoted me from like a video I did 3 years ago. I did a video about Indiana, and one of the facts that I found, which I thought was very interesting, okay, maybe not as interesting as hysterical, but there used to be a website called condoms.com, and they had a stats page. And of course, when you find that out, you gotta look at the stats. Indiana ordered more extra small condoms than any other state. I can't believe it. Somebody brought that up. That's like from 3 years ago. They quoted me. I think the biggest reason Indiana gets ridiculed is nobody remembers it's there. I mean, if you sat down with 10 friends and you all started writing down all the states you could remember, I promise someone would forget Indiana, or it would be towards the end when you know you're all, oh, okay, did I do this one? Did I do that one? Oh yeah, Indiana. Number 7, New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey. Yeah. How could you not ridicule New Jersey? I mean, they've set themselves up. They let shows like The Real Housewives of New Jersey exist. And then they had the Jersey Shore. Back in the early 2000s, you had guys with horrible spray tan and their hair all done up like 6 inches above their head with so much hair product it was sad. The Sopranos was cool, but it didn't really help their reputation. Now, that's how most stereotypes, and that's where most ridicule will come from. Movies, TV shows, things like that. When it comes to real people from New Jersey, I brought this up before, they've got this way of communicating where they stand a little close, they talk a little loud, their hands are waving around, and they don't mind using the F word when they ask you what church you go to, or any subject. Yeah, but the Jersey Shore did not do New Jersey any favors. And those stereotypes and jokes still go on to this day. The show went off the air about a decade ago. Number 6, Arkansas. I honestly thought this would have been number 1, but as I sat down and read some of the comments, I see that these days, other states are at the front of the line when it comes to ridicule and jokes and stereotypes. I mean, Arkansas was the standby for dating your cousin jokes since forever. Arkansas has a lot of backwoods areas, and that sort of thing, I guess, happened back in the day, and that stereotype sort of hung around the neck of Arkansas like an anchor. Overall, Arkansas really doesn't have a great reputation other than, like I've said many times, the northwest corner of the state. Everywhere else is, it's backwoods or dangerous like Pine Bluff and Little Rock. There's an old joke about Arkansas that goes, how do you know you're from Arkansas? Your mom's been in a fist fight at a sporting event. Now, there's a lot of strange facts about Arkansas that I could put here, but the most alarming one I've ever seen is they have 3 times as many parole officers as they do dentists. Number 5, Florida. Florida's been moving up the ranks in the ridicule department for some time now, thanks to the Florida Man memes. There's a definition for Florida Man, and this is what it sounds like. Florida Man is an internet meme first popularized in 2013, referring to an alleged prevalence of male persons performing irrational or absurd actions in the U.S. state of Florida. Internet users typically submit links to news stories and articles about unusual or strange crimes and other events occurring in Florida, with stories from the news that often start off with Florida Man. You know, they have those for every state. Ohio man drives forklift to local bank and starts flipping cars. Stuff like that. But when it comes to Florida, you always see those, and it is always frickin' weird. There's one right now. It's like Florida man confesses to murder after a human foot is seen sticking out of his yard by neighbors. I saw a meme one time had a guy with a mullet walking an alligator on a leash down the street, and it said, Florida man doesn't care. Most people seem to think Florida is Miami, Orlando, Tampa, places like that, but that inner part of Florida is backwoods. I would argue more backwards than Tennessee and Kentucky put together. Number 4, Mississippi. Mississippi is the standard punchline for most jokes when it comes to states. And they brought it on themselves. I mean, they lead the country in so many different negative stats, it's scary. There's a saying in the southern states that goes, there's always Mississippi. And that's because no matter what's going on in your state, Mississippi is probably worse off. So there's always Mississippi. I've also heard that one as thank God for Mississippi, and there's actually a definition of that one on Wikipedia, and I'll read it to you. Thank God for Mississippi is an adage used in the United States, particularly in the South, that is generally used when discussing rankings of U.S. states. Since the state of Mississippi commonly ranks near the bottom of any ranking, residents of other states also ranking near the bottom say thank God for Mississippi, since their presence as the state in the 50th place spares them the shame of being ranked last. As an example, Mississippi ranks the worst when it comes to business opportunity, educational achievement, obesity rate, overall health, poverty rate, life expectancy, and quality of life. If you're from Mississippi and you want to give me a hard time right now, I'm just the messenger. Don't get mad at me. Fix your state. The people are always friendly. The state's just been a mess since they outlawed free labor. Number 3, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is often referred to as the poor man's Texas. It's also got a reputation for being flat and barren. In the comment section of the surveys, a lot of people brought up the poverty rate in Oklahoma, which isn't great. They're not the worst. There's far worse, Mississippi being one of them. It was a couple years back, though, that Oklahoma led the nation in the highest rate of residents on public assistance. So that kind of tells me, yeah, they got some poverty issues. Mostly it's going to be in the rural areas. Tulsa, Oklahoma City, they got their issues, but they're not rampant with poverty like a lot of other major cities in this country. This one I could see as, yeah, it should be on the list. I don't think it should be number 3. That's my personal opinion, but it showed up an awful lot. Number 2, Oregon. There was a time when Oregon, mostly Portland, was the coolest place to move to in the United States. It was always in the top 5 for the most moved to cities. We had the hipsters here and things were good. The hipsters left and the homeless moved in. Actually, some of those hipsters may have lost their job and now they're the homeless. Who knows? For whatever reason, people like to make fun of Oregon these days. The Beaver State has been put through the ringer for, I'd say, a good 5 years now. Somewhere around 2018, maybe 2017, something took a serious turn. Most of that has to do with Portland, obviously, but more and more people are making fun of all the Oregon backwood counties that want to join Idaho. It's like they want one of those movements where they break up the state. Now, just recently, Idaho put a thing on the floor of their state legislature that said that the politicians in Idaho could actually talk to the people of Oregon about this move and have discussions about it. That's as far as it went. The people for the Greater Idaho movement here in Oregon have taken that as like some major win and it's going in the right direction. I got some bad news for those people. It's being treated like a joke in Idaho. It's never going to happen for quite a few different reasons. One, Idaho would have to pay billions of dollars to Oregon for that land. You don't just get to switch the border, you got to purchase the land from the state of Oregon. And all the buildings that are state-owned and all that stuff is part of it. Idaho's not going to want to spend that money. On top of that, Idaho, Oregon, and the United States Congress have to agree to this move. Oregon's not going to want it to happen because that will mean Oregon will lose political power in Washington. Idaho's not going to want it. They might want the political power, but like I said, they're going to have to dish out a whole bunch of money that the citizens of Idaho aren't going to go for. Then it has to go through the U.S. Congress. And I'll tell you one thing, the federal government's not going to okay this. It starts a dangerous precedent. Every state has some counties or some cities that don't really agree with what's going on in the state, like the people in Eastern Oregon. That means every election cycle, when something doesn't go the way some portion of the state wanted, they're going to try and pull this. And it's going to become a political bargaining chip. Austin is completely different than the rest of Texas. They're going to want to move. Do you think Michigan wants Detroit? No, they're going to try and throw them out. Upstate New York and New York City are completely different. Are they going to want to split? California will try and split into 9 different states. It'll never happen. If it does, it won't be in our lifetime. But this has become sort of a joke. It's online, there's memes. My understanding from a couple people I know in Idaho, it's kind of a joke amongst them. I mean, then you got all the typical stuff, the politics in Oregon and the homeless situations of Portland, Salem, and Eugene, the amount of beer and strip clubs we have. All of that is ammo looking for people to make fun of Oregon. And a lot of it we earned. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link down below for that. We'd love it if you went over and subscribed. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, California. Who didn't see this one coming? This one was obvious from the very beginning. If you're online long enough, you know California is ridiculed relentlessly, especially in the last 10 years or so. They've gotten themselves into a lot of different situations, both politically, socially, and environmentally, that really makes the state look bad. Now, a couple things about California we all know. It is one of the top 5 most beautiful states there is. There's no arguing that. They have some of the best beaches. They have the most entertainment. But they've also made some really poor political choices. For the first time in the state's history, people are actually moving out at a higher rate than they're moving in. That's never happened before until the last 2 years. Now, I do know there's some studies right now that say it's even, and it's barely a percentage point that there's a difference in the last 2 years, but it's still, when you've been gaining triple digits and double digits almost every single decade and almost every single year in the state's existence, when they actually break even or lose a percentage point, it's news. It's not a good sign. If you want to get an idea what I'm talking about, if you've never heard any jokes about California, if you want to read snide remarks about California, any video I've done that has the word California in it, read the comment section. There'll be a few eye-opening things there. 1, how delusional people are about what's really going on in California. 2, how accurate they are about other things. And 3, how many people on YouTube really need a hobby. I honestly never thought I'd see the day California would become a bigger punchline than, let's say, Mississippi or Tennessee. But here they are at number 1. Congratulations, California. You're number 1. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.